This is the story of the Anunnaki, told to me personally by the one known as Enki. There's a lot more to this, more than I have time to record, but this is the part that directly applies to the dynamic going on today. Some elements you may recognize from ancient myths and legends. Others you may find completely unfamiliar. There exists real scholarship on the subject, and more is coming out every day, it seems. But it is often very difficult to tell the difference between real, fantasy, misunderstanding, and disinformation. Hopefully, in the end, it will make sense of the current hodgepodge of myth, error, and disinformation out there on this subject. The decision to return to Earth as gods was hotly contended between Enlil and Ea. Enlil insisted that it was logical to leverage the humans' religious weaknesses into an advantage to the Anunnaki, and rightly asserted that the Anunnaki were in even greater need of their hued men than they had been on the Igigi's mission. Ea countered that argument with the mission plan developed by the Igigi that called for the completion of the genetic evolution program he had developed, and would result in a human race equal in all ways to their Anunnaki creators. Ea argued, "It is better to have partners and friends, especially now that we are all that is left of our people. As slaves, they will only give us trouble. Their minds are more flexible than you imagine, and the spirit in them is not easily broken. They will find ways around whatever controls we put on them, and inevitably will rise up against us. They are better suited to this planet as they are partially derived from it. If we are to remain on this world for long enough to rebuild our civilization, it makes sense to make them equals, and then mates, to strengthen and adapt our future generations. If we do not quickly extend to them the appropriate protections as a peer species, the youngsters will find their fun here as I and some of the other Igigi did long ago. Not all became abusive, but it was too easy to become predatory when the objects of natural lusts have no rights or means to defend themselves. We had a home to return to. We knew we would have our pick of mates. These youngsters have only each other, and not every male will be successfully paired with a female. The hope of our future is our youngsters, and we cannot allow them to abandon the principles of civilized behavior in relation to the humans, lest they devalue and abandon it between themselves." An's younger son, Shen, had the last word. "We need them as slaves now. We can take up the question of making them peers later, once we all have observed their capacity for ourselves. Who cares if a few of our young men take pleasure with the females, or release their battle lust occasionally? Better they do that with a weaker species than with their own. We are too few to lose anyone to youthful aggression. The created ones are expendable." In the end, An agreed with his sons, Enlil and Shen, that this was practical, and they could worry about changing the relationship back to a cooperative one later on, when the humans were once again civilized and the success of the Anunnaki mission more certain. Since it was Enlil's idea, An charged him with the task of facilitating the civilization of the humans, including introducing them to the Mes of An, the principles of civilization underpinning Anunnaki culture. Enlil was supposed to teach humankind how to act like a king, in other words, how to be equal to the Anunnaki. An intended to force Enlil to learn about and become involved with the humans in a positive manner, but his decision, it turned out, set the wolf to guard the sheep. Ea, who had proved his project management ability in turning around the team that built the planetary drive, was officially given the title Enki, Commander of Earth, and tasked to establish the first new outpost on Earth, which he named Eridu. Eridu is constructed from E, which means temple, home, and yes, Re, which means natural leadership, cooperation, companionship, and Du, which means the same as in English, except that the Anunaki variant means due to completion. This construction was both a blessing and mandate to make the first new city and home on Earth a God-conscious, positive model of cooperative governance. Enki selected Nudimmud to assist him on Earth, and hoping to keep Enlil occupied and out of his way, requested that Enlil be assigned to lead the team that would survey the damage to Mars and determine whether a presence could be re-established there. An agreed. Enki then requested Anzu to command the conversion of the fleet of smaller ships that had accompanied Nibiru from use as long-distance personnel transports into lifting bodies or short-haul transports. An again agreed. Then Enlil requested that the Earth's moon be placed under his dominion as well, that Anzu's refit be carried out from Mars, and the tablets of destiny and the majority of personnel be moved to Mars as soon as possible. An agreed to let Enlil reactivate the moon, but stated that Anzu would determine where he preferred to carry out the refit, and that anyone who was not on active duty deployment would remain on Nibiru with the tablets of destiny, including himself. As a last command to his sons, An required Enki to re-establish his relationship with the wife he had taken many years earlier in an arranged marriage, a genetic engineer from whom he had long been estranged. An then granted her the title of Damkina, or Mother of Earth and Humans, and tasked her to assist with refitting the planet and its inhabitants to Enki's specifications. The initial conditions on Earth were very rough. Time had changed the climate and even the continental structures. The continents we know as Lemuria and Atlantis were gone. The newly chosen site for Eridu was in a semi-arid region with poor soil but good fishing and a reliable source of water. Just to the east, great sandstone cliffs provided a ready source of building material. The waters were navigable to 2 seas, and the land routes were passable. Best of all, there were numerous well-adapted humans in the area. Enki placed his personal craft, the Dara, also referred to as the ibex in human records, offshore of the building site, where it would be protected from the numerous sandstorms, wild animals, insects, and curious humans. The project team lived on the craft until Eridu was nearly completed, after which they moved into the new city. Enki and Nudimmud took up residency on the top floor of the Aengura, the House of Enlightened Command Voices, what we would call the command center. The need for a reliable source of food was pressing, as it was already known that the Anunnaki were allergic to or had trouble digesting the local plants, and because of how long they had eaten algae and yeast, crops grown in vats and used to recycle waste during the long space journey, they could no longer tolerate meats and fats. Damkina went to work on genetically engineering digestible foods, at first in the minimal facilities aboard the Dara, then in a temporary facility on shore, and finally in a life laboratory facility almost equal in size to Aengura. But things were never comfortable between Enki and his wife, and quickly after they moved to Eridu, things went strangely between them. It did not help that Enki was almost always away. As soon as Eridu was up and running, he was immediately required to tour the other strategic sites to assess progress and realign things as needed to transform Earth into a manufacturing base to re-establish Anunnaki technical capacity. The first real trouble between them may have been an accident, or it may have been a case of Damkina losing her nerve. This incident is recorded in human history, as it was very dramatic and witnessed by a number of human technicians who could read and write, but were not well educated outside of their particular specialty. Enki had been away on a long tour of the facilities in what is now India and China, and upon his return found the first batch of the new, safe vegetables ready to harvest. Damkina had told him he could have the first meal from them, so he picked a few. It was hot, and he sat down at the edge of the field to enjoy the first real food he had eaten in a very long time. Within moments, he fainted. He had gone into anaphylactic shock and appeared to the humans to be dead. Damkina rushed in, shooed away the humans, and performed CPR on him, which the humans mistook as a sexual act, as she sat astride him to do the chest compressions and looked like she was kissing him when she performed the breathing portion. The allergic hives filled with serum and pus, which he transferred to her through contact with the plant saps on his skin, were mistranslated as wombs filled with semen by the scientifically ignorant observers. The humans credited Damkina with heroically saving Enki's life, but from today's perspective, it seems more likely that Damkina set him up to die and lost her nerve at the last moment. Enki initially believed her apology about a miscommunication and officially credited her with the rescue. While Enki was managing the infrastructure building and navigating an increasingly torturous relationship with his wife, Enki's half-brothers, Enlil and Shen, established their own outposts on Earth. Enlil named his city Nippur, literally, my frightful base, which implies military might and might be comparable to the modern Al-Qaeda, which means the base. Shen named his city Kitab, literally burning, shaking earth, because of its heat and location on a fault line. Each developed their cities in line with their names, with Kitab becoming a city for pleasure seekers of all kinds, and Nippur becoming a hub of martial activity. But Enlil not only developed Nippur's military might, he also made it into a political and economic hub of activity by copying and then sometimes outdoing his brother Shen. Nippur became known for its multi-species brothels, spectator blood sports, slave markets, and exotic hunting, including the hunting of humans and the occasional Anunaki human hybrid who had fallen afoul of the rulers. Enki's prediction that some Anunnaki would use their advantages over humans in a brutal and abusive manner was already proven true, and soon he was to discover that he had badly underestimated the corrupting influence that was about to spread through the young Anunnaki. Eridu.